Now that I have the trails finished, there's one spot where it crosses a ditch and I can't get the truck and four-wheeler over, so I need to create a crossing. Rather than an official culvert, which runs about $200 for a length, I had some scrap pipe, so I brought them over to the property to see if they would fit in the ditch, and they looked like they would work perfectly. After some fine-tuning and adjustment, I decided where I was going to create the crossing and put the pipe down. The next step is to cover it up with some dirt. Because of my experience shoveling and digging in the past, I knew better than to try to dig a hole or get the dirt from the property. Rather, I paid the dump truck company to bring a load of sand. It was $250 or $300 for a 10-ton load, which isn't a huge load of sand, but the advantage is the smaller dump truck is much more nimble and they're very willing to help put it exactly where I need it. A larger truck wouldn't be able to make the turns necessary. After a bit of scouting, it turned out we needed to actually cut down 1 or 2 trees before the truck could make it in. After those trees were removed, he carefully backed into position and got as close as possible. We couldn't put the dump box right on top of the ditch without risking the truck getting stuck, but we got really, really close. The sand is partially in the ditch, with the bulk of it being right next to it, which is pretty good. Unfortunately, this still means that I have a lot of shoveling to do, and I'll be moving almost 10 tons of sand in position. When I come to work on the property, I only have a few hours each day, so I ended up having to shovel it in 2 different sessions. You can see here in the time lapse that it was a lot of scoops of sand. Even though it's a lot of work, it's pretty satisfying to make changes to your own property. I also kind of consider this my exercise regimen since I don't have a gym membership, and really any free time that I'm not spending with my family, I'm out on the property making improvements. By the end of the first shoveling session, I had moved about half of the sand and had created an impressive crossing. It's not quite wide enough to get my pickup truck across, but I could probably get the four-wheeler. The second time I got out there to shovel, there had been a little bit of moisture, not exactly a full rain, but it made the sand a little bit heavier, which was not fun. After an hour or 2 of shoveling, I got the bulk of the sand into position, but I realized I was no longer really efficient with the shovel. I decided to break out the four-wheeler and my box blade to get the rest of the work done. I did the first couple of passes with the four-wheeler without any weight on the blade, and it didn't work very well. It just kind of skittered on top of the sand, so I had to come up with a different process. The previous time I had used the box blade on gravel, I had my brother with me, and he was able to hop on and hop off the blade, so I needed to come up with a different fix. I found a piece of wood or an old railroad tie that fits perfectly on the box blade, and it actually provided just the right amount of weight so that I could really dig into the sand. Of course, the first time I used the block of wood, I forgot to put the four-wheeler into four-wheel drive and got stuck. Luckily, just putting it back into four-wheel drive got me free, and I was able to continue working on the sand. One annoying part of this process is that every time I made a pass with the block on the box blade, to get the four-wheeler turned around, I had to stop, pick the piece of wood up, turn the four-wheeler, and then put it back on, which made for a lot of heavy lifting, but it was still easier than doing it all with a shovel. I used my bush axe to knock down a couple of roots that stuck up through the sand. You can see it works pretty well, just not as well when you're trying to record with a camera in your other hand. I was pretty happy with the final product. The sand bridge allowed me to get across the ditch with a four-wheeler and hopefully my pickup truck, pretty much completing my ring trail around the property. With this crossing finished, the trails on my property are pretty much done. There's a spot here or there that needs to be adjusted, but otherwise they're pretty much good to go. You can see here, I had a little bit of fun popping over this new bridge with my four-wheeler, and then I decided to check it with my pickup truck. I went pretty slow the first couple of times because because I didn't want to find out that it was too small for the truck to cross. On my first time over, I found out I need to keep the truck in four-wheel drive, otherwise it starts to slip. You can see once I get it into gear, it goes right over. I'm now able to get my truck around the entire perimeter of the property, which allows me to access a lot of areas. If I need to move things or if I need to bring supplies, it's a lot easier with the pickup truck. The four-wheeler is pretty useful, but there are definitely some things where the truck beats it out. Now that everything is done, I just have to work on keeping it maintained, which means one day I need to buy a tractor.